Experience was formed to manage the CPC program and conduct audits on members' professional development hours each year. Approximately 5 to 10% of members are audited each year. Up until now, members have been informed of their audit results, but there have been no consequences for not being compliant with the continuing professional competency program. For the last several years, though, the National Executive Council, the Council on Professional Experience, and the Board of Certification have carried out preparatory work for the launch of the enforcement of membership requirements. This includes several new bylaws, as well as strengthening COPE's audit policy and procedures. So our current state, on February 15, 2019, a little less than 11 months ago, the National Executive Council officially approved several new bylaws that support the enforcement of CIPHI membership requirements. These national operating procedures can be found on the CIPHI website under Information Center. NOP 23, Professional Development Hours, Progressive Compliance Cycle. NOP 24, Professional Development Hours, Audit Results Appeal Process. And NOP 25, Termination and Reinstatement of Membership, Maintaining Professional Development Hours, are the new bylaws that were introduced. For 2018, audits that took place in the spring of 2019, COPE trialed its strengthened audit procedures and policies in preparation for 2019 audits. So this is always a year behind. So we are now auditing for 2019 as of now. Progressive Compliance Cycle, what is it? The Progressive Compliance Cycle is essentially a model for the enforcement of the Continuing Professional Competency Program requirements. It is a two-step progressive compliance audit process that encompasses a robust professional development hours system. There is a two-strike system, meaning no consequences affecting membership or designation until second year of noncompliance. After the first noncompliance, the member is placed into step one of the progressive compliance cycle. Then after this next noncompliance, within a 5-year period, consequences are enforced. The 5-year rule will be explained as we go through the progressive compliance cycle. The National Operating Procedure number 23, Professional Development Hours, Progressive Compliance Cycle, explains most of what I am about to explain to you. And again, that can be found on the CIPHI National website under Information Center. Or you can go to that link and you can download it directly from there. The Progressive Compliance Cycle non-compliance. The progressive is limited or is initiated when a member is found to be non-compliant with the Continuing Professional Competency Program requirements for one of two following reasons. One, the member is selected for a random audit of professional development hours and is found to be non-compliant, or the member has entered insufficient number of professional development hours and is automatically non-compliant. This is why we always tell people, enter as many hours as you can, not just the minimum. We don't want people to automatically be non-compliant because they didn't enter enough hours. So audit results, non-compliant. If a member is found to be non-compliant with the Continuing Professional Competency Program requirements, they are placed into step one of the progressive compliance cycle. The member is then notified of the failure through electronic means and or registered mail. The member is provided information on how to make an application to appeal the audit decision. The member is advised of implications and potential outcomes of continued noncompliance. The member is advised of requirements for the CPC program and regular membership, provided information about the CPC program and the professional development model. And lastly, the member is provided assistance if requested by the candidate in support of achieving future compliance. the member is re-audited the following year for compliance with professional development requirements. So re-audit results if you're compliant. A member at step 1 is automatically re-audited the following year, as I mentioned. If this time they are found to be in compliance with the CPC program requirements, there are no consequences. The member remains in step 1 of the progressive compliance cycle because of the 5-year rule, which will be explained here shortly. Audit results are communicated to the member. If, on the other hand, the re-audited result is non-compliant, the member is re-audited the following year following the first non-compliance, and if they are non-compliant with the continuing professional competencies requirement again, the member is placed in step 2 of the progressive compliance cycle, in which the consequences are: 1, termination of their membership, or if the PHI is certified on or after 2017, termination of their CIPHI membership and suspension of the CPHI Canada designation. Again, the suspension of the designation only applies to members who are certified on or after 2017. The member will be notified of failure through electronic means and/or registered mail. The member will be provided information on how to make an application to appeal the audit decision. The member will be notified that their audit fail will be referred to the National Executive Council and the Board of Certification for further actions. And lastly, the member will be reminded of requirements for continuing professional competencies program and regular membership, reissued information about the CPC program and the professional development model. When membership is reinstated or CPHI Canada obtained, member is placed back into step 1 of the progressive compliance cycle. If a member fails a future audit within 5 years, membership in CIPHI is terminated. If the person is subject to mandatory membership, their CPHI Canada credential will be suspended. Now, I sort of want to talk about the 5-year rule. So we have a couple of scenarios. Obviously, somebody was picking on me because I've been non-compliant in 2020, so I'm placed into the progressive compliance cycle. Since that time, I have been compliant with the professional development hours and maintained membership in CIPHI. In 2022, though, I was non-compliant again. And the question is, will consequences be taken? So in this scenario, if a member fails an audit within 5 years of previously failing an audit, they are not placed at step 1 of the PC cycle again. They are considered to still be in the cycle, and this counts as the second audit fail. So as it says here, yes, his noncompliance will be referred to the National Executive Council and the Board of Certification for further action relating to membership. As 5 years have not passed since I was placed in the step 1 of the progressive compliance cycle, this counts as the second noncompliance. So the audit fail will refer to the NEC and the BOC for further action, including termination of membership and or suspension of the Canadian Public Health Inspection Canada credential. If on the other scenario, 5-year rule, John was non-compliant in 2020, so placed into the progressive compliance cycle. Since that time, he's been compliant with the continuing professional competency program requirements and maintained membership in CIPHI. In 2027, John was non-compliant again. And again, it asks, will consequences be taken? In this scenario, if a member fails an audit and at least 5 years have elapsed since they previously failed an audit, they start at the beginning of the progressive compliance cycle again. So in this one, no consequences directly affecting membership. It has been 5 years since he was last non-compliant with the CPC program requirements, so he is put back at step 1 of the cycle again. The 5-year cycle resets. and I'm given an opportunity to become compliant with the continued professional competency program. And so my membership would not be affected. So consequences for this progressive compliance cycle, obviously, is the non-compliance after the PCC has been implied is that your membership will be terminated by the National Executive Council, or you could lose the Canadian Public Health Inspection Canada credential if you are certified on or before January 1st, 2017. So when does the PCC start? Members audited in 2020 for their 2019 professional development entries. Any member found not in compliance with the requirements of the continued professional competency program for 2019 will be placed into step 1 of the progressive compliance cycle. With the appeal process, obviously members have a right to appeal an audit decision. CIPHI and COPE recognize that a formal process is required for CIPHI members to appeal the results of their audit. Acceptable grounds for appeal include the appellant does not agree with the auditor's determination that the number of professional development hours submitted does not comply with the CPC requirements, or the appellant does not agree with the auditor's determination that activities claimed as professional development hours did not meet the CPC program criteria, or due to extenuating circumstances, the appellant was unable to submit professional development hours before the deadline, but can provide evidence for professional development hours that have been acquired within the audited year. Or lastly, there has been an alleged process irregularity. More information on the appeal process can be found in the National Operating Procedure number 24, Professional Development Hours, Audit Results Appeal Process. Again, those can be found on the national website for CIPHI. Reinstatement of membership. A former member applicant may apply for reinstatement of their membership by completing the number of professional development hours that the applicant failed to achieve on their last audit and reporting completion of the professional development hours to the National Executive Council. Please note, any professional development hours completed since termination of the membership are eligible, but none of them can be counted toward the professional development hours required for the year membership, for the year the membership is reinstated in. So if I was missing 10 professional development hours and I took some webinars and a training course in 2020, I can use them for the 2019 professional development hours to maintain my membership, but I cannot claim them again in 2020. The National Executive Council will submit professional development hours to COPE for audit. The applicant may appeal audit results. The National Executive Council will reinstate membership if the professional development hours are approved or the appeal is allowed. The National Executive Council will notify applicant of its final decision regarding reinstatement of the membership. And lastly, the National Executive Council's decision shall be final and binding on the applicant without any further right of appeal. Conclusion, the vast majority of members are already compliant with the continuing professional competencies program. The enforcement of membership requirements is an important piece in strengthening the integrity of the Canadian Institute of Public Health Inspectors. And the National Executive Council, Council on Professional Experience, Board of Certification, and the CIPHI office are available to support members through this new process. Please contact your local branch representative for questions or concerns. And the contacts are progressive compliance cycle correspondence, appeal process, and reinstatement of membership. Please contact your local CIPHI branch president. For audits, professional development hours, or continuing professional competencies program inquiries, please contact your COPE branch representative, or you can send them to the national COPE at cope@ciphi.ca. And with that, it's a little quick, but are there any questions and answers at this time?
Okay, so we have a question here from Andrew with a scenario when John was certified in 2017 or after. Do you just want John to maybe go over that scenario again? Can you go over your two scenarios again, John?
Okay. Yep.
Maybe just to reiterate what that is.
Yes. Okay. So in the first scenario, I was non-compliant in 2020. I'd be placed into step 1. I maintain my, I fix everything, become compliant again for 2020, but then a few years later, if it's within 5 years of my first time being non-compliant, say 2022, 23, 24, if I'm non-compliant again, I would automatically go to step 2. That is that 5-year rule. If I was non-compliant in 2020, but in 2027, which is more than 5 years from my first time that I was non-compliant, I was non-compliant again, I just go back to step 1 because more than 5 years have passed since my first discrepancy or failure to meet the requirements. I did fix it, obviously. I became compliant again. But more than 5 years have passed, I just go back to step 1.
And John was certified after 2017, right?
Yes.
In those scenarios. Okay, the next question from Cameron. For those individuals with the credential removed, is there a process to notify their employer or a list of suspended individuals that the employer can review?
At this moment, no, there is not. We are leaving it with the members to notify their employer, but that is being discussed, but we have no process to notify your employer as per se, because we may not know who your employer is.
Another question from Andrew. What is CIPHI doing about non-members that are working as PHIs? As membership is voluntary, how can you remove a member's credentials but not a non-member's?
Okay. If you're a non-member, there is no requirement for you to maintain professional development hours. This only applies to members or to PHIs who were certified after January 1st, 2017, as mandatory membership applies to them. We can't remove a candidate's credentials unless they are under that 2017 mandatory membership. At that point, because they have to maintain their membership to maintain their credentials, we can remove their membership and their credential at that point. Anybody before 2017, we cannot remove your credentials.
Okay, so another question here from Tanya. If environmental health professionals are not working in the field, but are in an administrative role, I believe there is a reduction of hours form. Can you please expand, as some struggle with this as they want to uphold all standards and requirements?
Yes, I can. Actually, I'm going to refer that over to Debbie for a little more explanation on that.
Hello, everyone. It's Debbie Hilton here. Yes, there is a declaration form that can be completed. You can go onto the Member Services Center, and in the drop-down tab, there is a declaration form there. And with that form, you would enter in the hours that you have worked for the year. It is a prorated system, so when you do go in to log your PD hours, it automatically calculates the hours for you.
Okay, so I see a few more people typing in there, so we'll just wait for the questions to pop up. A reminder, I guess, while we're waiting, that all your PDHs do need to be in by the end of the month, and if they are not, you will get locked out of the center, so please make sure you do enter them this month. And if you do have any other questions, you want to type them in here with your email address, we can also email you. Okay, so Julie here, can you review portion discussed regarding using 2019 hours in 2020, for example?
Sure. So if I was non-compliant in 2019, say I entered everything except I was missing 10 hours, of professional development hours. I can take webinars and training workshops and things like that in 2020 to be used for my professional development hours in 2019. And I would need 10 hours. I can do that. I can submit them to COPE. Yep, you're good. You get your hours in, and they would use them for 2019, and I would not lose my membership. The hours, though, that I claimed would all be in 2020. I cannot use them again for my 2020 professional development hours because I used them to up my 2019 professional development hours. So you can't count them twice. You can only use them once.
Another question here from Pierre. If you were on maternity for an 18-month leave, how can you be in compliance? I'll put that to Debbie.
So an 18-month leave, again, you would have to, so that spans over a 2-year period, if you will. You would still have to complete the reduced declaration form, and that is located in the MSC. And when you enter your hours in, the system automatically prorates it for you. It's difficult for me to tell you at that time, but when you do go in there and enter your hours, it does prorate it for you, and you should be compliant at that time. If you do have any difficulty, because that is not your typical scenario, please do email COPE at cope@ciphi.ca.
We have a question in the room from Raymond. Do you want to come up here so you can use the mic so everyone can hear you? Okay, I'm going to repeat it for him. So Raymond's just wondering if the prorated COPE hours works for labor disruption. So I'll let Debbie answer that one.
Thank you for that question, Raymond. At this time, I don't have a response to that because that's not your typical scenario, but that is a question that I will bring back to the COPE committee, and we can discuss how that can be taken care of at that time.
Okay, so there's another question from Tanya. This is probably, they're just talking about membership payments. So wondering if membership payment can be automatic and roll over every year, and if everything is status quo, is there a way to streamline the process instead of completing membership form annually? If we can do automatic payments, that would be good if you could look into that.
Okay. Before I answer that question, I would also like to mention that for Raymond's question, I will be taking that to the National Executive Council as we are meeting this weekend. So I will discuss it with them as well. It's one of the things that obviously is not just going to be an easy piece to answer. Okay. This probably payments be automatically roll over each year. That would have to be something with your work process or your work facility and your HR department. Obviously, we can't force anybody to make payments or to have the workplace deal with the issues of that. Some places have asked their HR departments and that to do this, but we as CIPHI cannot actually make the workplace comply with that requirement.
I think she's wondering if it could just be an option.
Oh.
Like if they could just say every year, like let's say for other memberships, they automatically bill you on January 2nd, it comes off your credit card. Is that something that CIPHI could look into in the future, if you choose to do it that way?
If that's what, if you're asking, Tanya, that I can actually ask that as well at the National Executive Council meeting this weekend. I'm pretty sure they probably could, but again, it's one of the problems is that members, you know, there's issues with 1 year you may do it, next year you have a different credit card, the number may not automatically work. Things do happen, people drop off, retire, things like that. So an automatic renewal is kind of an issue that the office sometimes will take and sometimes they won't. So I will ask though.
So the question from Algoma Public Health, if you can reallocate and make up hours in the next year, why can't hours be carried over from the previous year if you do have extra? It's like Cameron's maybe responding to that, so I'll let John or Debbie speak further, that they can't roll them over because of code of ethics needs to be signed every year. Yeah. So maybe if you guys can speak a little further to that, clarify. Code of ethics.
Yeah, and then thanks Cameron, that is true. The Code of Ethics require us that every year you have to sign the membership and take the Code of Ethics. So we can't carry over your professional development hours from one year to the next. We do tell people to try to make more than just the current 80, though that may be undergoing some change, but not just to enter 80 hours, enter about 90 to 100 to make sure that you have enough, but unfortunately, no, we cannot carry them over.
So if you can reallocate and make up hours for the previous year, like you mentioned, let's say 10 hours, is there a maximum? Is it only 10 hours? And I guess what's the difference between the two that Algoma is kind of mentioning here? Like where does it differentiate? Yeah, no, it's more than, it depends on how many hours you needed to make up for the lack that you were missing in 1 year. You can make them up in the next year, but again, you can't use them again for the current year that you're using them. The differentiation between that and carrying over to the next year.
What's that?
Like, why can you backtrack? They're saying add on last year, but why can't you bring some forward? Like, why isn't there maybe, you can take 10 professional development hours forward to the next year? Like, right. Why allowing it to go back?
The reason we're allowing people to do this is because if you were shy, say 10 hours for 2019, in 2020, you would automatically lose your membership. We would rather not have that happen. So if you want to make up your professional development hours in 2020 and submit them back for 2019, we will accept that. But unfortunately, you can't carry them forward because somebody would work 1 year and then not have to work for 2 years doing anything. And we want to maintain that continuing professional competencies. Our work environment, the knowledge base is changing so fast that it's very hard to maintain a current competency level. So we want people to be doing this continuously, and that's part of being a professional is that every year you have to learn new things. You have to maintain your knowledge base. And to do that, you have to do it yearly.
Are there any other questions here?
Yeah. And it was Tanya, sorry, it says, sorry for CIPHI to take money out from credit card.
You already addressed that.
Yeah, we did address that.
Okay, if there's any further questions, you can just type them in the chat box with the email address, and then somebody will get back to you. I would like to thank everyone here today for joining us on the webinar for the CIPHI seminar series. It is great to have such participation in the room and online. I would like to thank John for presenting. The presentation will also be posted on the CIPHI Ontario YouTube channel shortly, so you can always check back there and rewatch the presentation as well. If you have any additional questions, you can email John at president@ciphi.on.ca about the PCC, or any PDH questions can go to cope@ciphi.ca. The next CIPHI seminar series will be on Wednesday, February 13th at noon, and will be on Radon, presented by the National Research Center. Please ensure to complete the evaluation form this session, and hope you can all join us in February. Thank you.